Hi guys, welcome back to Schauer Thoughts. My name is Sarah Schauer. This is a podcast for left and right brainers, middle brainers, anyone with a brainstem, medulla pons, corpus callosum, anyone with a prefrontal cortex, hands, digits, numbers, or fingers. It really doesn't matter. We are just going to be continuing our part 4 to the series of how to design your own course curriculum. And this time we've gotten into time management. Now, it's going to be an interesting approach to time management because I'm assuming everyone really wants to get strict with it. Like, how do I, more efficiently and effectively like use my time? And I understand we are going to be touching on efficiency and effectiveness. But we're also trying to get off the sort of white supremacy, patriarchal sort of understanding of time and urgency, the sense of urgency. And, you feel like you don't have enough time, right? Where like time is an asset. We are going to be discussing how, the phrases you use can shape your understanding of time and how a lot of time-related phrases warp our understanding. I did want to say for everyone who's watching on YouTube, there are a lot of books in front of me right now, and some of them were sent to me, some of them I bought. The other ones are like basically going to walk through a lesson plan to how to meaningfully conceptualize time outside of the world of productivity culture. Now, I will be using some lessons from economics and business management, and I will be using investment terms. That's not, again, because I want you to adopt a capitalist mindset, but when it comes to learning about concepts and like building understanding to things that are more high concept, it does help to bridge understanding by using existing understanding and then kind of jumping off from there. And so since more of us are well-versed in the world of finance and business when it comes to time and specifically the aspect of management, I will be using that. But before we get into that, I'm going to update you on how my week is going, all the books that are before me. I did want to tell everyone I talk about, internal monologue and internal narration and the importance of the tense that you use. That is going to come up here. But also, I know that whenever I put a resource, people want more of a consolidated link because sometimes it will be to research. So if you would like to understand perceptual physics, right, like when it comes to using the same sort of psychological mechanisms to conceptualize, like using the same geometric principles for spatial, hypothetical, a whole bunch of other different types of distance. Decisionscape, how thinking like an artist can improve our decision making, gives a full breakdown of that. And then towards the later chapters, she does also discuss how metaphors and different figurative languages and the tense, like present, perfect, or past, like all these sort of tenses, kind of manipulate our understanding and kind of do put us like back in time in terms of headspace or forward in time. Not a lot of us don't usually use like present tense, I guess, when thinking in internal narration. I'm making a guess because a lot of people have told me their internal monologue thoughts, but I don't have one. So I'm just like, I've heard a lot of people are like, if I only, or, there's so much of a looking forward aspect or a looking backwards. So if you were like, I need some condensed, more accessible understanding for the influence of past, present, all these different tenses in the brain and how they shape understanding. Decisionscape, how thinking like an artist can improve our decision making. We'll cover that and the perceptual physics aspect. And it's also incredibly important to this entire sort of series I'm doing, right? We're talking about, how thinking like an artist can improve your decision making. So if you're like, I want the, text version so I can sit down and read this because this was a lot of information. I'm not taking everything that she's saying from her book. I am like combining a whole bunch of books, but that book, Decisionscape by Elspeth Kirkman, will be the book that you should pick up. This is not sponsored, but hey, MIT Press, I love you. I know you follow me on Instagram. Love this book. And there's also one other book to drive the point home, but this is going to be part of the entire lesson plan. A lot of people were like, I just get to the lesson plan portion. And I was like, this is the lesson, right? We want to give you a meaningful concept of time and how, thinking like an artist, right? We're talking about expression, pursuing our course, you can accidentally foreground or background some very important factors, or like distort the image, or kind of strip the entire thing of its context. And it's like, well, we need to align with like more artists, because artists do use expression more than a lot of people who are getting like more like STEM routes. I know it's STEAM, but yeah, we shouldn't be afraid of expression because we're trying to get off of capitalist system. So Decisionscape, and then also I've mentioned this book before, but it will drive the point home too. I'm so mad I forgot about this one. So if you would also like to know how your words shape like how you experience reality, Future Tense, Why Anxiety is Good for You, Even Though It Feels Bad, by Tracy Dennis-Tiwary, PhD. These are 2 books. And then also, I guess Sin and Syntax, like I mentioned last time, how to develop wickedly effective prose could be used for this. I mean, the thing is your brain does have an affinity for syntax in the language that you are speaking. And it really, in the language that you speak does like help you conceptualize a lot of different things and make them more relative and like helpful for you. I was reading this, the difference between like passive and active voice. And what passive voice is great for like being objective. However, it does create emotional distance, and it seems like it's, kind of just you're separate from it. And so there was an article that I was reading where it's like a lot of academic information is written in passive voice. And so like it is objective. However, it is a bit farther away. And so again, you learn a lot of things by association. And if someone is, or something or a concept is very far away, you do want to bring it a bit closer. And so what I would suggest, I've suggested something along these lines before. This is a tip for anyone in academia and research, right? And the text is a very passive voice. It's very like emotionally disconnected. If you go through the research that you're reading, I found that this helps. This is not saying take someone's work and edit it, but if you read, I'm reading like an academic article, and anytime they say "we discovered," switch out "we" with "I." You didn't actually discover something. Obviously, this is someone else's work. Do not steal their work and claim that it's yours. I'm saying put yourself in these scientists' shoes. And so now you can follow their logic, right? So if you're reading what they wrote, we, decided, or we discovered, then we followed up with this. I discovered, I decided. And now you get like to see their steps. And if you get to see their steps, you get to connect all these different points, and learning will get easier. It's just whenever you're reading something on PubMed, National Institute of Health, wherever you're reading these sort of research things, when they say "we," "I," and then you're like, okay, now I can follow the logic, because if you can follow the logic, you have a path. And if you have a path, you can connect dots quicker. It's like establishing a plot, and storyline. It's aids understanding. So that's just a tip. But yeah, I'm going to include Decisionscape and then Future Tense, because I know a lot of people were like, I need, kind of condensed information on the tense in which you speak. These 2 books are going to help you with that. I also have a lot more books in front of me. I recently got, I think it was something about like the design of color, or like something about color, and it did kind of get me worried because it's like a book on like all the different colors and like sort of optics and like how the eye processes color. And what immediately got me really worried is this is my year of medicine. I am reading a whole bunch of books on so many different areas of medicine, and when I was starting the book on color and like different on the eye and the retina, I did not know that 1 in 12 men are colorblind and 1 in 200 women are colorblind. Why this worried me is not because there's something wrong about being colorblind. No, and there are like certain types of lenses you can wear and like things to accommodate yourself, and I always encourage accommodating yourself. Why this scared me in my year of medicine is that men have dominated research and medicine for a very long time. And if 1 in 12 men are colorblind, and the most common type of colorblindness is red-green colorblind, inflammation and is largely red, and there's also the added nuance of that most people who are being studied or when it comes to medical textbooks, I've noticed are everyone's white. So it's like, oh crap, the red, inflammation is not going to be, it's going to look grayish, or like it's going to look like, just skin, right? There's inflammation. And then I immediately, the red-green colorblind, I worried about everyone who has an olive color like skin tone, like the green undertones, the yellows. I was like, oh, that's going to be muted. So, I really want to look into research of people with olive skin tones, which is going to be, people like Swana and like Mediterranean. I imagine there's like underdiagnosed and like, or, there's a whole bunch of things where it's just a lot to, and then obviously people of darker complexions, I'm like, oh crap. And the thing is, I know this is going to sound roundabout, but, so when it comes to like laser hair removal, there are certain like types of lasers that you can, like, people who are like darker skin tones like probably should not use as opposed to lighter. And what I was also thinking about is that your skin, like when it comes to melanin is not just exclusive to your skin. Like your inner ear, brain, a lot of other things in your body have like skin and your brain came from like the same embryonic sort of like origin like place. It's like the ectoderm. So I started to immediately worry about like when it comes to laser hair removal and like certain lasers are not okay for certain skin tones, I was like, how does that factor in with the melanin and like where like the similar tissues are when it comes to laser treatments inside the body? Immediately worried. And so that's just kind of building. I also, Penguin Random House, this is not sponsored by them, but if you guys would like to sponsor me, they sent me a whole bunch of books and they're on medicine, and this is Women's History Month. And so I'm just super excited to get into it. I'm really hoping watch this not be Penguin Random House. And I just like no, this is Penguin Random House. Okay. So Penguin Random House sent me a whole bunch of books. This is my year of medicine. March is Women's History Month. And I've been like reading, This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, How the Pill Changes Everything by Sarah E. Hill, PhD. I haven't read the entire thing, but I'm really interested to learn more about like how birth control affects your brain, because your ovaries also do have like, like neurons and like connection to your like sympathetic nervous system. So I'm like, what's happening here? I'd like to know. I also got the book, The Menopause Brain by Lisa Mascani, PhD. And right off the bat, oh my God, that's a lot. Menopause is just, I like, the thing is it's not scary, but I've gotten to the point about like the hot flashes and what's happening to your brain. And just by describing what's happening to your brain, I'm like, that's scorching hot. That's incredibly hot. That burns. And so I'm like, great. Menopause. And so I'm learning, this is also great too, because it goes through hormones and estrogen and all these things. And this is my year of medicine and chemistry. So it's just nice when you get a little biology hormone 1-2 punch. And so that's what I'm also reading. The thing is I use a charcuterie board method. I like to, just kind of read little bits at a time. Also, a good reframe is that reading and learning is like feeding your soul. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I can't open one book if I don't finish it. And that just reminds me of like when you're sitting at the table and your parents force you to eat everything or else you can't leave the table. And now you have this, you're like kind of have this unhealthy like relationship with eating now in a similar way to like books. Just realize that, you don't have to finish the book and then move on to the next thing. Force yourself to read or consume something, whether it be visually or, literally eating it. This won't expire. Unless it's research. And then in that case, I'd be like, take it with a grain of salt. But, you can just switch around like little snack food. And then once you establish like, oh, I don't have to finish this, the guilt kind of comes off by itself. You're like, oh, if I'm not forcing myself and like I'm not in school and no one's like grading me on this, then why the hell can I not just like leave it and then come back? And that's what I've been doing. And it's just like makes like reading a lot easier, because when I got sent this, I read 116 pages and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I put it down and I just like switched to another book. And the reason why I read 116 pages so quickly is because it was the beginning is the rundown on the brain. And when you're like, I know her, and I know her. And then the other book that they sent me is The Black Angels, the untold story of the nurses who helped cure tuberculosis. I haven't started this one yet, but from what I've gathered from studying medicine for this brief amount of time is that tuberculosis is a big topic. So I'm incredibly interested in learning about this one. The title says New York City, 1929, a sanatorium, a deadly disease, and a dire nursing shortage. In the pre-antibiotic days when tuberculosis stirred people's darkest fears, killing 1 in 7, white nurses at Seaview, New York's largest municipal hospital, began quitting en masse. Desperate to avert a public health crisis, city officials summoned black Southern nurses, luring them with promises of good pay, a career, and an escape from the structures of Jim Crow. But after arriving, they found themselves on an isolated hilltop in the remote borough of Staten Island, yet again confronting racism and consigned to a woefully understaffed sanatorium dubbed the Pest House, where it is said that no one was left alive. Spanning the Great Depression and moving through World War II and beyond, this remarkable true story follows the intrepid young women known by their patients as the Black Angels. For 20 years, they risked their lives working under appalling conditions while caring for New York's poorest residents who languished in wards waiting to die, or became guinea pigs for experimental surgeries and often deadly drugs. But despite their major role in desegregating the New York City hospital system and their vital work in helping to find the cure for tuberculosis at Seaview, these nurses were completely erased from history. The Black Angels recovers the voices of these extraordinary women and puts them at the center of this riveting stories celebrating their legacy and spirit of survival. So I would strongly recommend picking up this book for Women's History Month, because if they're being erased from history, then we have an opportunity to not let that happen. So I'm very excited to read this. Oh my gosh. I know this is taking forever and you're like, we're doing time management. The thing is time management is going to be more of a philosophical discussion and aligning. So we'll get to it. I have these 2 books I bought by myself because I thought they were incredibly interesting. I love any book that discusses emotions from a very unusual angle. Now, what I mean by that is I love self-help books, obviously, but sometimes they're too they discuss the emotion as if like it's usually good, bad, right? And I'm like, I don't care about sort of a moral judgment, or like how to fix yourself. I think if you just work with emotions, like, oh my God, on TikTok, there's this whole discussion about like being jealous of a friend, and people are like, jealousy is not normal or natural. I was like, okay. Let's all pause on that. I actually should do an episode on that. But these 2 books that I have, one is by Seda Kurtz. It's called Hate, The Uses of a Powerful Emotion. Like an example on the back of this is a brilliant meditation on the relationship between hate, domination, and resistance. Kurtz shows how the concept of hate is deployed to stigmatize and discredit anti-colonial, anti-racist, and feminist resistance, and how liberal moral stances against hate operate to pacify and to justify state violence through appeals to democracy and rule of law. This book is a vital tool for demystifying hate so that we might see its role in liberation struggles. So I am super excited to read this one. I also just love kind of remembering to approach emotions from a philosophical angle, because this is going to be more of a philosophical discussion. And it's just a fun opportunity to disagree with some, I just love how neuroscience and philosophy don't really like each other, and so to keep things interesting, just kind of like seeing it from both angles, and then I talked about the last time, the tension holds me in place. I think the thing is like when smart people talk, a lot of times you feel compelled to take their side. But when it comes to like any area of study, most people have like very strong opinions. And if you adopt everyone's very strong opinion the first time you read it, then it's going to be very hard to like continue. So just, hear them out, recognize that they've worked very hard at this, but they're also most likely approaching from a certain angle. And there can be complementary angles. There can be, you need multiple angles to see the full rounded view, right? Full 360. So just taking a bunch of opinions. And then the other book I got is called A Philosophy of Shame by Frederick Gross. And an original reflection on shame as the central feeling of our age, the expression of an anger that is the necessary condition for new struggles. Can shame become a source of political strength? Faced with injustice, growing inequality, and systemic violence, we cry out in shame. We feel ashamed of obscene wealth, and amid wider deprivation, we feel ashamed of humanity for its ruthless and relentless exploitation of the earth. We feel ashamed of the racism and sexism that permeate society in our everyday lives. This difficult emotion is not just sadness or a withdrawal into oneself, nor is it a paralyzing sense of inadequacy. As Frederick Gross argues in A Philosophy of Shame, it arises when our perception of reality rejects passivity and resignation and instead embraces imagination. Shame thus becomes the expression of an anger that is powerful, transformative force, one that assumes a radical character. In dialogue with authors such as Primo Levi, Annie Ernaux, Virginie Despentes, and James Baldwin, Gross explores a concept that is still little understood in the anthropological, moral, psychological, and political depths. Shame is a revolutionary sentiment because it lies at the foundation of any path of subjective recognition, transformation, and struggle. So maybe start with this one when it comes to, your reading and learning journey. Actually, I'm assuming if you guys have gotten this far, you've already started it. But they're just cool books to consider because a lot of times people are so tempted to suppress or fight their emotions. But it's like if you just kind of move with them, then it'll be over soon. Like I talked about, my sort of tip for when I'm trying to read and like enjoy my time reading, I'll like come up with a list of things I want to ruminate about, and then I'll ruminate on a walk, right? I'm using the actual anger because anger is an upper emotion, like it compels you to act. And so burning off the anger to replace it with happiness. And then when I get in the house, like the thing is it's kind of just working with the weather and not against it. Because it's a losing battle, it's the weather. But yeah, these are books I want to talk about. And it's fun to learn more about anything just because you can. That's why we're here. I was, I did have to say something about my use of metaphor and analogy and all sort of rhetorical devices. And sometimes I'll get comments, and I've said this before, but this is why I'm saying this again. Sometimes I'll get comments where it's like, you're using the logic of one area of study and it's not compatible with another. And I understand that sometimes things really do not translate. However, like if I'm talking something in physics and then someone in psychology is like, that doesn't apply here, it absolutely does. Okay. And this is where etymology and the can come into play. But why I mention this now is because I read a lot of like research, and there was this one piece of research recently from a psychiatrist. And a psychiatrist should have some rudimentary understanding of like chemistry, obviously, because like medication and stuff. And he was talking about the element, like the emotion of surprise. And he was discussing it like, he was like, surprise is like free energy in the body. But he literally said, it's not the free energy that you get from physics. And I was like, pause. What the fuck are you talking about? The body? Okay, this is where I mean, like, he's trying to say, like, I guess that don't think about it in the physics way because I want to keep us on topic to psychology. But the body and the brain are not excluded from the laws of physics. The body, the nervous system, right? Like the brain follows the principles of classical mechanics, thermodynamics, and electrochemistry. So for you to say, as a psychiatrist working with the brain, be like, oh, surprise is like free energy, but it's not the free energy in physics. It fucking is. It's the exact same type of free energy you are talking about. And are like, oh, those two things aren't similar. If I'm most of the time I'm just augmenting the logic. I'm using a like, which is an approximation sign, right? They're roughly similar, so you can get a conceptual understanding, the shape of the information. And then, when you get into specifics, that's when you get like really granular with the words and the details. However, if I only spoke in like the exact perfect one-to-one of neuroscience and physics and all this stuff, none of you would be able to understand me or be interested, because it's incredibly formal, objective, incredibly dense. It is like heavy material. And so like the thing is if you're ignoring the purpose of rhetorical devices, and you actually don't even probably know how to use them. If you're like, oh, that's not exactly one-to-one. Science communication. Anyway, that just pissed me off when I saw that, because I was like, oh, like, yes, it is. What do you, it's, so now the thing is someone, I don't assume that someone in physics would read that and be like, oh, now I can't understand it. But like if you were trying to set up a parallel with physics, this person was like, no, don't do it. This also reminds me of when I went to Neuroscience 2025 in San Diego. There was this guy, like there was a bunch of people presenting their research, and I loved going around and talking about their research. And there was this guy presenting his, he was talking about rhythms in the brain. And I was talking about the math aspect of it. And I saw a light like in his eyes just like light up, and he was like, because I don't think that anyone approached him from the math angle. And he had his advisor there, and she was like, probably a respectable professor, but she was like coming from a biology angle. And I don't know what word I used, but she was like, no. Like he's talking about it like this. And I was like, ma'am, I know what the fuck he was talking about. I was approaching it from a math angle. We are approaching it from different angles. However, what you said doesn't negate what I said. A whole bunch of things work together. As the body is a complex system. If you're like, oh, only my opinion is, I disagree. Anyway, so I'm excited you guys are here talking about time management. Also, in the last episode I included some resources where you can learn for fun and free or learn for fun and free. Gave a shit ton of websites. And why I mentioned that also is I know a lot of you are creating your own, your course curriculum, and I'm taking the long roundabout route. However, sometimes you're like, oh, what do I do after this if I'm going into a certain area of study? When I include the courses where you can learn for fun and free, a lot of times they will have an actual like syllabus of what will be discussed, how the subject unfolds. So if you're like, oh no, I was kind of looking for a syllabus to follow, in the link I provided, when you go to like the courses, I'm not saying you have to sign up for the courses, but like for most of the courses, they're part of like Cambridge or MIT or something like that. And they're like, this is this course in this series of courses. And while you can't like access the entire like, all the materials for the course, you basically every single time get their syllabus. And so if you're like, where do I go from here? Go on the Learn for Fun or Free. Go on any of the course websites I mention, and then click on it, see their syllabus. And if you're like, this is my outline that I'm going to follow just so I make sure I'm not going way off trail, then that's what I use that for. Like sometimes I do like popping up in the middle of subjects, but if I'm like, okay, where do I go from here? Then I'll go to like one of the free online courses, see how they outline the syllabus for like, oh, this is what's coming up next, and then I'll pick up something on what's next. But most of the time when I'm looking for like the next step in a book, most people who write like nonfiction books include references to a whole bunch of other different books, and I like to write down the books that they reference. And then I like jump to those books, and it kind of like bridges understanding. It's really cool. But yeah, time management. We're going to get into this. Oh, yeah, why I mentioned that, the Learn for Fun or Free. Someone commented on this. They said, thank you so much for this, Sarah. I just finished a course on sharks by Cornell and the University of Queensland via edX, and I had a blast. And I'm so happy for this person. Like, I love when I help you guys, like, learn. Oh, my God. Even if it's just for fun. So I saw that, and I was, like, going to crap myself. I was like, yes. Because it's like, I don't know. I mean, when someone takes your advice, it is so flattering because it's like, oh, you value it enough to apply it to your life. That's such a rare honor, where it's like, because sometimes, I mean, I feel like in most social situations where if someone's like asking for advice, they're going to hear it. But what they mainly want is like reassurance. From time to time, that makes sense. But like when someone actually takes your advice, you're like, what? I'm happy for you. You value me that. And so when your words mean something to people, I guess after, years of alcoholism where the weight of your words are lost and then someone takes you seriously and it helps them, it's like it breaks your brain. I'm healing. So time management is usually the hardest part for people outlining and committing to their course curriculum. It makes sense. You have a hard time getting into the rhythm of things because you need a beat, a pulse. And so what I like to point out when people are like, I don't know where to start. So we are moving off of patriarchal capitalism, white supremacy, all this stuff, where they kind of like keep the course and they keep the pace for you. But since we are moving into the realm of like designing our own course and we're jumping off of like understanding from like performance artists. So like performance artists are like dancers, theater actors, people who are like more rhythm and movement based. You'll notice that, for example, if someone is about to freestyle rap, what do they say? Give me a beat, And so for them to know where they start, they need a beat. And so we are going to get into beat induction and how your brain kind of does it, but then also how you can get, off track. So that also means that if you need to be given a beat, where in your body do you establish beat pulse? Your heart, your body. So the episode on interoception and being connected to body, where do I start? Well, you're going to need a beat, and that's going to come from your body. So I would recommend, there are things called binaural beats, right? We have like theta waves, we have alpha waves, all these sort of things. And different waves can, help you study or like relax. And so just find one that fits the mood that you're trying to establish for your studying. And I can include resources below. And then just start to stretch right before you study. You've tempted yourself. You've set the space, set the, binaural beats, and then just kind of stretch to it. And you feel like get yourself moving, and then that's when you sit down and you start to go along with the beat, right? So you're like, where do I start? You start in your body. You start by stretching, loosening up, right? Hydrating, getting limber, similar to you if you were going to go for a walk or dance or, be on stage, and then let that binaural beat take you. Or if you do have the capability to listen to music with lyrics while you read and learn, that is so valid. I cannot. I mean, I do like to have like my record player going, but it's I do have to like make it kind of more quiet if I'm getting like into the nitty gritty. But that's just a tip for like, where do I start? I don't know where to start. Your body is going to lead on starting. And then we are going to talk about like the different ways of like timer versus stopwatch and how we need to adjust our understanding of time, because time is a resource. And so we have to understand how to make time. And because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have the time to do this. And the way that all these sort of like oppressive cultures phrase time, they do kind of make it scarce. And I'll get into that. So that's just sort of like, I don't know where to start. Give yourself a beat, right? Beat, move to it, stretch to it, sit down. And then that's me taking you literally, if you're like, when it comes to topic, I don't know where to start, previous episode, your interest, right? Something that immediately connects to yourself, your emphasis point, right? Like, what have you always wanted to know, or like pay it, like, just like what has been historically overemphasized in your life? For me, like I talked about, was, I was raised super Christian, and I didn't think that, girls were having sex for fun. Like whenever someone's like girls were like having sex in the 30s and 40s, my brain for some reason can't conceptualize that. My parents didn't talk about sex. Actually, they did, but it was so unhelpful and terrifying. So my mom is a doctor. She's also like super Christian. But when she told me about sex, she has a bunch of medical journals, and she showed me a medical journal about sexually transmitted diseases and infections. And she showed me the pictures of all of them at their worst. And she was like, if you have sex, this is what will happen. And so that scared me. And my friends were also similarly scared until I got to like middle school. And that was like just a wake up call where I was like, oh my God, people are hand jobbing. But I mean, yeah, so that was my crash course with sex. So just when I think about that, like emphasis on like where I'm going to start, the sex lives of medieval women was something that I thought was like really interesting. So I would go to the bookstore, be like, where's my emphasis? What is something I've always craved knowing, wanted to know? And then that's where you start when it comes to topics. And if you're like, well, I want to do different topics, that's great. You can start at different places. Like much like swimmers who are singing much like swimmers who are swimming different events. They also they all start at the diving board. Let me do runners because that makes more sense. Runners can be staggered, right? You can also, like, if you run different heats, you start at different places. You can start multiple times. That is the beauty of this method. So that's where you start. Biggest interest, emphasis, and then when it comes to, actually sitting down, give yourself a beat. Move first, stretch first, pulse, establish it, resting heart rate. Oh my gosh, I just had a flashback of one of my vines. My resting heart rate registers as a panic attack. Oh my God, it's been forever. Anyway, yeah, that's how you establish a beat and then keep going. So this is using beat induction. It's the fundamental cognitive species-specific skill of perceiving a regular asynchronous pulse or beats while listening to music, allowing humans to synchronize movements like tapping or dancing. And so reading, you can read passively or actively. A lot of people who read passively are more listening to the audiobooks, but they are still getting active with it because most people who are like listen to audiobooks or like read in that way, or if you're listening to this podcast now, you're likely doing something else, so like if you're cleaning or you're cooking, that's another way that it's like active. And so you're just kind of moving, not so much with the book. I mean, you can move with the book and you react, but it's you are literally just kind of moving with the book in your mind. So it is more, so we're talking about like reading and actively learning and stuff and active listening. Damn. When you just realize midway through talking, I'll get to it. I'm going to remind myself later of eyes. Okay. So this is also like kind of funny when you consider the sexism angle I mentioned way earlier. So a lot of time, like when I've been talking about this, people want me to rush to the point or get to the point or give them a curriculum. And it's like, you want me to rush the invisible labor aspect, right? So when you learn and you grow, you want to, create new life for yourself, okay? We're inducing mental labor. And the thing is life doesn't begin at conception, but labor sure as hell does. And when it comes to like, we've adopted kind of like a patriarchal, cis, hetero, capitalist, white supremacy mindset because we're like, oh, I had the idea I'd like to be intellectual. I want my new life to start now. The concept came to me. I want immediate results. And the thing is like, oh gosh, actually you're kind of, it's like how cis men have very little investment when it comes to gestational efforts and energy consumption when it comes to creating a baby, right? New life, and not really kind of, they're just like, oh, the baby pops out. But meanwhile, if you've ever been pregnant, right, it's like you start growing them and then 9 months, right, baby pops out. And so like if you're like, oh, I want the immediate results of this, I would like you to take a step back and be like, growing anything, growth, change, inducing mental labor by learning, working, right, is going to take time. And if you think it gets too hard, you might abort mission, right? Now, I am very, very pro-choice here, but in this specific context, a lot of people are like, I want to, grow and learn and change. So if you think about it like, you want to be reborn in the non-Christian sense, you do have to put in effort that is going to take like months to years. Is that to say that you won't see results until like months or years? No, I'm saying that like invisible labor is still labor. You're still building a skill. Like you're going to feel the investment. It's just like whenever someone's like, I want the results immediately or else I'm going to give up. I think that you should kind of decenter some stuff, patriarchy and all that sort of things. But yeah, this is the degrading of invisible labor here. Oh, this is so much work. This is so much effort. Welcome to invisible labor. And the thing is time management is a higher order cognitive function, and it's a lot of planning and a lot of maintaining the pace. And that type of labor, again, has historically been offloaded to women. So it's like, again, another type of labor that has been devalued. So just trying to find the meaning and the weight and the value of invisible labor. This is again, back to the whole color blindness. There's nothing wrong with being colorblind, but when you maintain a certain image, it contributes to something called change blindness. And this is where like a lot of times when it comes to dysfunctional couples, not even the couples, like where a guy's a piece of shit and the wife manages the home and she's maintaining the image of the home, right? Cleaning and all these sort of things and the household and all these chores. Where it seems like he doesn't appreciate her is because she's maintaining a constant image. He's become blind to the change because she is the one maintaining the image. However, it's only when she's sick or like can't clean something where he's like, oh my God, this house is a mess. Because, now you're seeing the mess and that's before it's cleaned and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, well now that's the only time you notice is when something's going negatively. You need to value how much it takes to maintain yourself, right? That's the time management and just managing the fact that you've managed yourself this far. You need to appreciate the invisible labor that is you keeping yourself alive, having a job, right? All these sort of things that are like day in, day out, like quote unquote, like grunt work. You are exercising like a very, very important skill that is going to serve you well on your reading and learning journey. So yeah. For time management, continuing with beat induction, we need a meaningful concept of time, the perceptual physics of it all, like switching to third, self-policing, adopting an observer position will give you greater access to peripheral vision. However, first person will give you greater control and understanding of depth perception. Switching from third to first will cut off your access to depth perception and altering how you see and experience time. And so like I was talking about when it comes to art, right? When you switch an image from black and white, from color to black and white, you lose depth, but you gain a sense of timelessness. And timelessness in this context is an issue. So switching to third from color to black and white, you may feel time rushing by because you're only focused on the subject, being overly self-conscious, self-policing, being in third person and utilizing more peripheral vision. You perceive things literally as closer to you. Like if you want to drive this point home with yourself, convert an image from color to black and white and then see how flat things get, right? And it's going to kind of give it a timelessness. However, it's hard to understand more depth with it. Yes. Yeah. So things will start to overlap, when you switch from first to third, hence the saying, I've got so many things on my plate. A plate is a flat surface, different things overlapping. You also have feature detectors in vision and touch. And when things seem closer to you, it's just going to be overlapping patterns. Things and activities feel cramped. If you cram something in, you create more pressure. With increased pressure, there's something called time pressure, which occurs when the perceived or actual time available to complete a task is less than required. It often leads to increased focus, impulsivity, and reliance on simpler, faster decision-making. While it can boost performance, though, through increased motivation, it frequently causes stress, reduced accuracy, and higher risk taking. And so stress and reduced accuracy, again, future tense and Decisionscape, definitely going to want that when it comes to stress and timing. The thing is why you should really pick this up is because English is, if we're speaking English here, is a stress-timed language, not syllable-timed, right? So like literally like there is stress on certain words, and then also words can induce stress. How you frame something, like can, if you frame something, I've got a lot of things on my plate, that's not just going in one ear and out the other. Like there's, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like that is, I picture like a plate with a bunch of overlapping things. And then like we talked about with, you force yourself to finish things and now you resent it. Like it just like adds pressure. So yeah, trying to get into first person so you give yourself a meaningful concept of time. Switching to third, flatten it, which will help you, kind of like if you need to make a quick decision. But we're trying to enjoy our time, extend it. First, embodied, interoceptive. Yes. Okay. So yeah, also one of the core principles of white supremacy is urgency, immediacy, false sense of urgency, literally thinking in black and white or black versus white, when you have to rush, stressing, making quick judgment calls on yourself and others. And it will be harder for you to have a meaningful grasp on time because time has been policed and you've adopted the mindset of the dominant oppressive, which means pressure from above, class. So why do I have a hard time making a schedule I can stick to? Because you need a meaningful embodied concept of time first. Remember, conceptualize means form a concept or idea of something, form, space, as well as form, make space, make. What is time? Time and space. There we go. Make space, allow yourself to move, take up space, take up time, right? And then you have a meaningful concept of time. And then when you have a meaningful concept of time, you can manage it, right? Because you would not hire a manager to manage something if they had no idea what the fuck the concept was or how to, execute it. And you're like, oh, but they hire managers all the time to, manage things and they have no fucking idea what they do, what we're doing. Exactly. So executive functioning, your CEO, your executive, your thoughts are saying, I don't have enough time. We don't have enough time to do that. And they're managing your time, your body's time, right? Everything you do. Like some people are literally like locked into place all the time because the manager's like, we can't do anything. So a lot of people do take the word of someone who has no experience with the concept being talked about. So yeah, we're body and head need to be synced for efficiency, effectiveness, and then accuracy, precision, and understanding. So yeah, we're getting an embodied understanding of time. All right. And the thing is like, you need to have a meaningful relative to you. And I know that we're about to discuss like physics a wee bit, and I'm about to give you a physics book. So this is just fun. A concept of time before you can confidently make and define your time schedule. Now, bringing back the sort of like beats analogy. A lot of times when people ask for curriculum advice, they will go to people who are type A. Now, type A people, I love you guys. However, we need to look at the type of people that type A people are, right? If you look at their schedules, it's like just so like this. And the reason why they can do that is because being type A and living according to that schedule is a skill that they have built up over time. So trying to adopt the reading and learning schedule of someone who is type A is like trying to learn drums from Travis Barker during a Blink-182 concert. You know what I mean? Like, this is where they fucking thrive. And also like, they have such a high level of skill and they are on beat. But if you're like measuring yourself against them and you're like, oh, I can't maintain this schedule, these beats, of course you can't. Of course you can't. So you have to meaningful concept of time. Give yourself time, make time, follow a beat, follow a rhythm, right? Get into a routine and a rhythm of things. And then that's when you look at a type A person's schedule and you have like the actual, embodied understanding of how they're dividing this up. And you know exactly at what point I need to transition. If I'm going to be following their schedule, I do need to cut off maybe 10 minutes to give myself, for me personally, time to smoke. And then I can ease into the next thing. So you adjust their rhythm, their beat to fit your needs. So, but that comes later, right? Trying to measure yourself against and follow people who have it down to a science is probably not wise. All right. Yeah. So the certain performance artists are, when you're looking for inspo when it comes to how to follow a schedule and how to follow a beat, you're going to want to look to musicians who create, perform, record music, dancers, they use movement to express, actors, theater artists, they perform in plays, films, live performances, filmmakers, cinematographers, they direct, and shoot motion pictures. You're like, did I really need that? They are going to become your guiding light when it comes to time management in real life. Now, the thing is I need to say that we are combining managing our time, but also doing creative expression. So when it comes to performance artists, right, when it's like dancers, there's also the choreography aspect. So choreographers are scheduling the time for like certain moves to come in. However, you also need to look at the level in which these people are performing. If you are new to learning and growing and managing your time, you're not aiming for perfection, similar to a young girl or a woman of a certain age, 31, joining a ballet class, right, for adults. If I go in with the attitude of moving and performing in like a expressive way, that's, I'm not aiming for perfection at the beginning of the class. That's not, and the thing is the choreographer is teaching you the moves. These are the beats, right? We're going to move like this. We're going to run through it. We're going to practice. Where you would reasonably put in, the choreographer would ask you, who is managing time, to be perfect with it is usually towards the end, and perfect is a wee bit flexible. Where you would only really expect perfect is during a stage performance. And so again, we're not in school. So if you're like, I need to be perfect, why? Especially when you're beginning, you're leading up to this. Who's going to grade you, right? We're getting out of the observer position. And that actually does matter. I'm getting to it. So yeah, if you want to follow the lead and the movement techniques of certain artists, musicians, dancers, actors, and filmmakers. Because musicians, if you are trying to conceive of time in a different way, utilizing sheet music, scales, rest notes, etc., what I think is a really fun idea is utilizing sheet music and putting it over a calendar. Right? Or putting an overlay over a calendar, because a lot of times it's when you want to read a book, you don't really see how it flows together. But with sheet music, you know that this entire piece is one sort of thing, but you really only cover a certain slot of notes until you move on to the next thing. And so if you're looking for a fun, interactive way to break up your days and manage your time and give yourself an actual beat, right? Putting sheet music to maybe something that's more easily, that's an easier beat, probably We Will Rock You by Queen, transparent, overlay that on top of a calendar and then do a dun, 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 that sort of thing. I want to do 2 chapters of one book and then 1 chapter of another, dun, 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 and that's your beat for the day. Where do I start? We Will Rock You, overlay it on a calendar, and then you eventually, oh my God, you could also track your progress with music notes. I read Decisionscape. I read 2 chapters of Decisionscape this day, and then I read 1 chapter of This Is Your Brain on Birth Control the same day, and then I get to kind of actually recreate We Will Rock You with beats from the books I'm reading. And so it's give myself a beat. Well, it could be, you could choose this for any song. You're what's my schedule? Put sheet music over a calendar and then be all right, there's 3 half notes here. There's a rest, and then, And then when there's a rest. Okay. And then dancers is fun for like choreography and like different moves. That's because they have like an 8 count. So if you're particularly ambitious and, you've got like a certain, you can, switch your attention quite easily. You might like do like an 8 count, like steps with books you're reading, like 1, 2, 3. Anyway, you understand what an 8 count is. It's just cool, like how you can, you could do a TikTok dance through certain books where it's like you want to hit this position once and then here and then return. And it's just like, what's my beat? Well, I kind of danced my way through Decisionscape and This Is Your Brain on Birth Control. And I did a finishing move with a philosophy of shame, right? So it's like you can take the actual structure. And I mean, the actors, filmmakers, cinematographers, you could like, honestly, I don't want to spoil something for my annotation club, but like when it comes to, you could think of this as a script, like where do I start? Well, the thing is when it comes to, I have taken script writing classes before, like you do like interior, right, day. We see our character sitting at the dining room table, book in hand, thumb up butt. She is wondering to herself where to start. Where do I start? She says out loud. And then sort of like narrate yourself into reading the book, and then making like, one of like your dialogue scenes is just like the, the intro to like a certain book. When it comes to scheduling, like time management, the performing arts make it like already so fun, and they have basically perfected moving through time and like in a way that's not overwhelming. And as long as like, let's do an easier play. Let's do an easier piece of sheet music. Let's do an easier choreographed dance, right? Like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Oh, if I wanted to, oh my God. Children's nursery rhymes, I could do that. Oh my God, now I want to do that. Head, brain, shoulders. I don't know if I have any books particularly on shoulders, but I do have one on weightlifting. Knees, oh my God. I have a book on joints, toes. I don't know why I didn't say this one first. I also have a book on bones. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, head. That could be my schedule. What the fuck? And so then like people are like, what schedule are you following? Head, shoulders, knees and toes. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. So this is how to manage time. You want to actively engage with time and understand it, for yourself and move through it. So then when you are like, all right, we're going to cut back on some moves, or we're going to go from head, shoulders, knees, and toes to Say So by Doja Cat, you know how to speed up the movements. Yes. There are some, key aspects to beat induction. It's a fundamental trait. It enables humans to synchronize with music, facilitating dancing and collaborative music making. When it comes to like beat induction and like making sure your head and your body are like on the same page, we have fun here. But I was also going to say where this really does, I'm going to just go ahead and move on to my other point, because I do have a book recommendation if you'd like to understand the science of time through a performance lens. Uncommon Measure, A Journey Through Music, Performance, and the Science of Time by Natalie Hodges. Sarah, I don't know there's where you start. Yeah. So Uncommon Measure, A Journey Through Music, Performance, and the Science of Time. I'm going to move down to metaphors because I really wanted to discuss this. Time management, giving yourself time. I had a revelation while reading Decisionscape. In chapter 17, she's talking about euphemistic and metaphorical language and how it can be used to distance ourselves from discomfort. And so again, people looking for, where did you say how I speak to myself? Decisionscape. It obviously can be beneficial, but I do want to talk about the cons of this. And if a lot of you are like, oh, I need to be stricter with my time, I actually disagree. I think you are kind of putting too much pressure on yourself, and you physically are unable to meaningfully engage with a lot of things. So I think we actually need to relax for a second. This is like one of those like finger trap things where you're like, oh, I need to be stricter, I need to pull harder. Nope, push in and relax for me, please. All right, so page 227. So she's talking about beating around the bush and other euphemisms. Your research shows when cancer is portrayed using metaphors of enmity, we tend to see preventative behaviors as less effective and less appealing. We feel as though we have no agency over the fate of our own bodies, the quote, invasion of inevitable, the quote, battle unwinnable. So why bother trying to avoid it? Such metaphors can also be harmful to those who have cancer. War metaphors like this imply that with enough strategy and resilience, the patient might have control over whether they, quote, win. So like I was saying, you're like, I need to, be more like strategic with my time. I think you need to have a meaningful concept of it first. If they decline treatment, they are seen to, quote, surrender, perhaps even letting down their loved ones who expected them to, quote, fight. The word cancer might not be able to hurt us, but the way we talk about it can. It isn't just cancer. Metaphors that move us are everywhere. We change the way we think lawbreakers should be dealt with based on how crime is described. When it is a, quote, beast that, quote, lurks and, quote, preys on the community, we tend to think harsher enforcement is the answer. When the same crime is presented as a, quote, virus that, quote, infects and, quote, plagues, we favor treating root causes such as poverty, unemployment, and inadequate health care. So the importance of the metaphors you use, particularly time metaphors. And because they are, a lot of time metaphors nowadays are metaphors of enmity. Metaphors of enmity describe deep-seated hatred, active hostility, or profound division, right? Dividing up your time. Often portraying it as a disease, a fire, or a structural barrier. Also can be a cognitive barrier, right? I can't get over this hump. Makes sense. Common metaphors include burying the hatchet, which is ending conflict, having beef, which is harboring resentment, or viewing the enemy as a poison/disease. Enmity is frequently characterized as a, quote, fire, burning hatred, a, quote, wall, which is a separation, or a shadow, which is a haunting presence. And so I usually would just take this literally, and that's how my mind constructs an image, but I also just wanted to remind everyone. So like a wall, I feel like a wall. I don't have enough time, right? There's something like preventing me. And so like there is an interesting way that we divide up time in our head. I included the source, the detailed meaning of enmity. It's just better words online. So Elspeth Kirkman goes on to say, the word cancer might not be able to hurt us, but the way we talk about it can. This immediately applies to the concept of time and how it's described. For example, the phrase, time equals money. Time equals money is deceptive because it has a subtle yet difficult conversion. Now, this is not in the book. This is now me just applying this immediately to phrases that involve time. Couch cushion was moving back, so I was slowly sliding into the couch. Okay. Time equals money is deceptive because it has a subtle yet difficult conversion. Time is usually modeled as continuous. However, money, how we normally use it outside of the realm of like finance and stocks, is discrete. So again, time is usually modeled as continuous. However, money is discrete. The original phrase is time equals money. That requires a conversion. And I know how much everyone hates math, and that's why it's really fucking frustrating. Converting discrete data, which is counted in finite, to continuous data measured in infinite, involves approximating, interpolating, and refining the data structure. Also, converting discrete data like specific counts to continuous, like example averages, may lead to a loss of precise data points. And I did like a little sidebar, continuous systems and engineering. Like in systems dynamics, moving from discrete to continuous involves changing from difference equations step by step to ordinary differential equations, like ODEs, often using rates of change rather than change between time steps. But okay, yeah, time equals money. Time is usually modeled as continuous. However, money, in the way that we use it outside of the realm of finance, everyone who's working in day trading, stocks and bonds, I understand, but like every day, usually discrete, So anywho, your brain does utilize something similar to a zero order hold, which is commonly used to convert discrete data to continuous. The brain version describes how it kind of maintains a constant state of action or perception between incoming discrete neural signals. So your brain does kind of perform a zero order hold. However, if you have any sequencing issues, right, like maintaining attention, any sort of like, if you're like neurodivergent, right? You have a hard time maintaining attention, following steps, following orders, writing, anything with sequencing, putting things in a row, right? Time, okay? then you have a difficulty ordering, and you encounter this metaphor and you internalize it, you're going to have a hard time. Okay? Since you require a zero order hold to convert, it's going to give you the sense of increasing difficulty, steps that aren't smooth. It will cause you to pause and wait. This conversion will hold you in place. Literally. Okay. So like I was talking about feature detectors for certain senses, right? When you are converting, time equals money, so continuous, how we normally interact with it, to discrete, it's going to involve it's going to involve a zero order hold, and you're going to be like, oh crap, I have to wait for each point, and then now it's kind of like chunky clunky, and it doesn't seem as smooth, and you're like, oh crap, now I've got to, anyway, we're going to keep going. So you can see this happen in the phrase, I didn't start the task at 1, so now I have to wait till 2. That happens because you didn't convert well, and you're counting down time. So capitalism and time equals money. When you are counting down the time, right? Time equals money. We're going to talk about why this is great for capitalism. Scarcity is actively engineered in order to give value to money. Without scarcity, money would be worthless. So if time equals money and you're counting down time, you've manufactured scarcity and increased anxiety, right? So if you're operating in third person, I don't have a lot of time. I have to do this by 3. I have to do this by 4. You've given yourself a countdown, and you've manufactured scarcity and applied pressure. So it's going to make it harder. And if you're not converting continuous to, if you're not converting discrete and continuous, right? You're like, oh, I have to start at 1, now 2, now 3, right? There's a conversion error. And I would say that, you probably have math like rote sort of memorization as opposed to, but anyway, yes. So if you say, like when you frame things as, I have to do these by 3, or I've got 2 hours to do this, you set a countdown, right? And then when you set a countdown, you apply pressure. It manufactures scarcity when it comes to time as a resource. And now it's going to feel like impossible kind of to pursue. So this brings in the observer effect and adopting an observer position when evaluating yourself, third person perspective. Some asshole is going to be like 2 separate phenomena, sure, but it's the same physics. That's why I had that whole lead up. The observer effect is the phenomenon where the act of measuring or observing a system inherently alters its state. It occurs when the tools used to measure, such as light, sensors, or human presence, or imagined human presence, interact with and disturb the object being studied, or the object studying, or the human being studying, right? Physics, psychology, perceptual physics, adopting an observer position, evaluating and measuring self like an object. In physics and quantum mechanics, the observer effect, it's the act of observing subatomic particles like photons, forces them to change behavior, such as switching from acting as a wave to a particle. Wave, continuous, particle, right? Individual, sort of, okay? It's not just about consciousness, but the physical interaction needed to take the measurement, right? And so, there's 2 different ways to count, you're talking about, measuring versus counting, finite versus infinite sort of thing. Okay, so switching from a wave to a particle, specific localized positions and energy versus interference patterns, wavelengths, and frequencies, right? You want to get into the rhythm of things. You want it to go smoothly. You want to, move forward in time. As soon as you say, I give myself 2 hours, countdown begins. Oh, I'll start in an hour, right? You need to give yourself time. Practice meaningfully giving yourself time. I'll get to how to do that. So, yeah. This is why you also need to, this brings in so many books together. I have mentioned a bunch of times the book Flow by the author, I cannot pronounce his name. But he was to enter flow state, you need to take ego offline. And that makes sense. When you think about, I think this is Ooh, like how much time do I have? I don't know if I can do this right now or put it into words, but like the fence post error in math, right? Where you like you often assume like it's like n-1. You're supposed to like take yourself out, and then when it comes to like oh my gosh, wait, that's so cool. Because then when it comes to like interconnectedness, then you enter like the realm of mindfulness. And they were talking about, I think it's shunya, where it's when you're interconnected with the world, you're at mathematical zero, right? Because a lot of people don't consider zero to be the starting point. You start at zero. There's a whole philosophical debate whether 0 or 1. But anyway, yeah. Fuck, that's such a good math conversation. Like where you, I don't have enough time. You're observing yourself, and then you've kind of measured it wrong. You need to take one out, and that is you, ego offline, and then you get back to zero, which is interconnected with world. Welcome back to flow state. Oh my God. I gotta really think about that. That's okay. Anyway, so if time equals money, you're counting down time, you've manufactured scarcity and increased anxiety. The pressure is literally on. When it comes to time management and developing a meaningful, concerning thought, movement, feeling, and sensing concept of time, we need to switch some things around. A lot of people utilize countdown timers. I have until 3. This is due by 5. The end is near. That's a countdown timer. A countdown timer counts backwards from a set time to 0 and is ideal for limiting, timing, or pacing tasks. When they go off, they tell you time is up, right? This is also why I included I have a whole book of like suggested books, like list of suggested books. But yeah. Now, a stopwatch counts upwards from 0 to measure elapsed time. It's best for tracking speed and duration. It's ideal for running workouts and experiments. We're experimenting, right? So you should probably use a stopwatch to give yourself time. And then I'm going to tell you how like you give yourself time on your interests, and then you kind of record return on investment. Anyway, so when learning, you are using energy. It's a mental workout. And when you're experimenting with understanding books, you should be using a stopwatch. It literally will help you signify giving yourself time, undoing the scarcity mindset. You're like making time for yourself. So when you start reading, start a stopwatch. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Don't refer to it. Just read until you feel like you've understood it, or like, you need to take a break. You need to do whatever the hell. Stop the stopwatch, write down the time, forget about the time, and then go do whatever the hell you want to do. And then whenever you sit down to read again or do your hobby, start the stopwatch, put the time in the book with the other time, right? And then at the end of the week, you add all the times stopwatch times that you used on your hobbies, your books, your research, your learning. And then you add that together and you're like, this is how much time I made for myself, right? This is how much time I invested in my interests, right? And the thing is learning and growing and neuroplasticity, right? Like you're obviously going to get a return on investment because you're like acquiring knowledge and growth and applying it, hopefully, right? So when you are like sitting down and you're like, I only have 2 hours, fuck the time. Just set stopwatch, right? Go until you're like, need a snack, need a break. Pause the stopwatch, write down the time. Don't look at it back, right? Next day, start the stopwatch, time. End of the week, add it up. I made time for myself. I made like 3 hours for myself. And the thing is saying that out loud will give you a more meaningful understanding of time, because it will also put you in control of your time, more in control, because a lot of people are demanding your time. Work is using your time, right? I don't have enough time. But this is a way to reframe it where you are literally making time for yourself. You're investing in your interests. You're getting a return on investment, right? And interest is growing. You are now pursuing what you're learning. And when you are making time for yourself, and you can make and take time, right? Then you can start to manage time. And I will get into more tips in a little bit. I know this was like a philosophical buildup, but stopwatch, whenever you're doing your interests, your hobbies, don't look at it, and just do it. add times, end of the week, be like, I gave myself 3 hours. I made 3 hours for myself. I invested 3 fucking hours into myself, you know? I mean, you can also include the gym, but the gym is like, I have to do this a certain amount of time. But it's just like whenever you do something rewarding and you're like, you just want this solid, this is why like journaling helps so much, because it like makes it real. A lot of times when something traumatizing happens, you don't want to say it out loud because it makes it real. The action of writing and speaking it out loud and like seeing, oh my gosh, even if you just did like 15 minutes of like reading each day, you're like, oh my God, I spent like over 2 hours or like nearly 2 hours on myself this week. I gave myself and like almost 2 hours this week. You gave that to yourself. And so anyone whose love language is gift giving, if last time I mentioned like, you know, using your love language to fall in love with learning, you give yourself the gift of time. You gave yourself that. You made that for yourself. You did that for yourself. And then your time really starts to mean something, right? Because when you make time on you make anything, then you know how much it costs when someone wants it from you. And so this is when like you start filtering out the shit that really doesn't matter. And that's a manager, right? If a manager can do it, make it, take it, right? Then they are managing balance, efficiency, effective. Anyway, I do want to read this interesting ass article. Now I need to say, this man's writing is very alpha male. However, we're not going to be taking the alpha male patriotic points from this. However, he does have an incredible, he has several incredible points to make about time. And I'm going to read it and we're going to take out the funny bits and apply the information that he says because the research is solid. His approach is just very interesting. So why every power player uses military time, and you should too. At 6:30, when you're hitting snooze for the third time, military time is already separating the predators from the prey. The hedge fund titans closing 9-figure deals before breakfast, the tech moguls orchestrating billion-dollar, whatever. The private equity kings who never miss a beat, they all speak the same language. I'm just going to talk about the importance of military time if you feel like, because military time feels more continuous because it's of the way that it's set up. So if you're like, I feel like I'm constantly crunched for time or I can't convert time, military time is going to accommodate you. And I'm going to explain it with this guy's article, but he's, feel free to laugh. It's not about showing off. It's about survival. In a world where milliseconds determine market fortunes and precise timing can mean the difference between domination and disaster, the 24-hour clock isn't just a preference. It's a weapon. Research from Northwestern Kellogg reveals that military-trained CEOs consistently outperform their civilian counterparts under pressure, particularly in times of industry distress. So again, we're not adopting this guy's mindset. I will also say that we're talking about the 24-hour clock. And why I will say, and I'm not being a patriot here, the U.S. military is the closest this country, most everyday citizens get to actual like kind of socialism. So like, why are people who've had military experience better at, delegating tasks and managing things? Well, because they've been a part of something that they consider larger than themselves. The military is a collectivist notion. You have a shared cause, you're sort of forced to care about each other. It's not individualistic. So it's like, oh, why do people from more socialist notions kind of manage people better? I don't know. It's beyond me. Anyway, this correlation isn't coincidental. Military time trains your brain to think in absolutes, to eliminate ambiguity, and to make decisions with surgical precision. The precision advantage that builds empires. Military time rewires your neural pathways for exactness. Unlike the 12-hour system that resets twice daily and relies on contextual cues, the 24-hour format creates a continuous timeline that matches how elite performers think about their day. Now, I'm not trying for you to be elite, but I'm saying the 24-hour format creates a continuous timeline, right? Where I said, like, you're trying to convert with the time equals money, like continuous to discrete, and I had to wait an hour. 24-hour will help things feel more continuous, and with continuity, it flows, right? So if you're like, I feel like my time is very choppy and I have to convert it, and sometimes like I'll be waiting for an appointment at 3:30 and I've been ready and I'm now sitting on the couch at 12:07 and I don't know how much time I actually have. Welcome to, again, the fence post problem. But like try using military time. I am going to include something so you can convert and understand, but like military time will help you in the long run with a more feeling of continuity. Okay. The 24-hour clock doesn't just eliminate confusion. It programs your mind for global domination. Military precision became the global standard because ambiguity kills. In business warfare, the same principles apply. Okay. So similar to him, we are augmenting the logic. We're going to be augmenting his logic, but like his specifics, we don't need those. Military precision became a global standard because ambiguity kills. Ambiguity does kill when directions are unclear, but also ambiguity is incredibly frustrating. You can read about this in Behave by Robert Sapolsky, right? Like when something is unclear or it's it's ambiguous or like it is agitating. Agitation, right? Oh, we got a spark, fire, rumination. Here we go. So if you're worried about time and how time is broken up, I would suggest getting into military time because it feels continuous, less frustrating once you get past the 0900. And yeah, also the thing is you know what, we'll keep going. This guy's military time is so yeah. Why your competition still uses training wheels? Most executives still think in AM PM because it's comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of excellence. When you default to let's meet at 3, you're already operating at a tactical disadvantage. Which 3? The afternoon 3 when energy peaks or the morning 3 when focus sharpens? Who is like, let's meet at 3? The message, I guess with the later times, it's like, do you want to meet at 8? It's like, are we doing what? At 3. Anyway, power players eliminate guesswork. They say 1500 and everyone knows exactly what universe they're operating in. Harvard Business School's comprehensive CEO time study tracking 60,000 hours of executive behavior found that the most effective leaders manage their schedules with military-like precision, leaving nothing to interpretation. Interpretation is a conversion, right? And so we are talking about being the CEO, the executive of our own lives, just making it easier on our own bodies, trying to collectivist notion, military again. And then everyone who's like in Europe is like military time. With the terminology does vary across region, guys. Apologies. So the cognitive rewiring that creates alpha mindsets. Military time doesn't just change how you tell time. It transforms how you think about time. Hello, Elspeth Kirkman, bringing this back up in a very interesting way. The continuous 24-hour flow mirrors how peak performers approach their days. No artificial breaks, no psychological resets, just relentless forward momentum from 0 to like 23:59. This mental frame, I've never actually heard 100 hours, 100 hours, 0 dark 30. That's what I don't know. I've never said 0, 0, 0, 0 out loud. Anyway, this mental framework eliminates the civilian habit of compartmentalizing morning and afternoon as separate entities. Elite performers see time as a weapon to be wielded continuously, not a resource to be managed in 12-hour chunks. Decision velocity under pressure. In crisis situations, precision timing becomes the difference between winning and losing everything. Military research demonstrates that the 24-hour system reduces cognitive load during high-stress decision-making. Decisionscape. When your brain doesn't waste processing power on time interpretation, it redirects that capacity towards strategic thinking. And yes, and so like if you're trying to convert time and you're like, where do I start? When you hesitate, you get self-conscious. Welcome back to observer position. Oh, now we're back at the start, right? Yeah, so I'm just trying to give you guys You should read this just for the laughs, but also for the research. It's pretty solid. The Neuroscience of Temporal Authority. Studies in chronobiology reveal something fascinating. Precise time awareness enhances executive function and decision-making capacity. The 24-hour format aligns with your brain's natural circadian rhythms, which operate on a continuous cycle rather than arbitrary AM/PM divisions. Elite performers intuitively understand this connection. They know that 1400 represents peak cognitive performance hours, that 2200 is optimal for strategic planning, and that 0600 offers unmatched focus for complex analysis. This isn't accident, it's biological optimization. Kind of, yeah. So eventually, when it comes to our concept of time, the whole clock is kind of arbitrary, yeah, like he was saying. But previously, we were more of an event based way to keep time, and the importance of ritual rites and there's yeah. So consider cryptocurrency trading. I'm gonna skip that. Elite implementation strategies. Adopting military time isn't just about changing your watch, it's about upgrading your entire temporal operating system. The transition requires strategic implementation to maximize the competitive advantage. Now, so I am going to include below, because this guy is a bit out there. Just take the research, don't take the alpha mentality. Because in Decisionscape, she also does discuss. Okay. Take this with a grain of salt. The research is great. His attitude is weird. We're actually trying to go in the actual opposite direction, but we're meeting in the middle, augmenting the logic, saying thank you, but you keep that. So in Decisionscape, she does discuss temporal preferences, and it's what time perspective you adopt. And so let me just read this. But I am fascinated by the mindsets of those who take the long view. Why are some people able to invest efforts well beyond the vanishing point of their own decisionscape? Part of this is about natural diversity. Just as hair color varies in a population, so do our temporal preference. If we all had the same temporal preferences, we would quickly find ourselves in trouble as a species. Too much focus on the future and the experience of today might be miserable. Too much hedonism, and we will always leave a worse world for our grandchildren. And if everyone lived in the past, we might never change the way we do things. Hence status quo. Some mix of these traits, though, bring balance between enjoying the moment, maintaining our traditions and history, and investing in a better world tomorrow. The idea of differing time perspectives piqued the interest of social psychology professor Philip Zimbardo. He created the Zimbardo Time Perspective Inventory to help understand individual attitudes towards time and how those individual attitudes compare to population averages. So included beneath this is going to be the Zimbardo Time Perspective Inventory to understand your temporal preferences, right? Like if you're a night owl or a morning person or anything like that, and you want to adjust accordingly, find where you could reasonably make time. I'm going to include that below. He also does have a book that is incredibly relevant. The Time Paradox, The New Psychology of Time That Will Change Your Life by Philip Zimbardo. So I'm going to include the Zimbardo Time Perspective Inventory. It's just going to help you reflect on your temporal preferences, right? Like, are you a morning, night person, afternoon? And then I'm going to include this link to this guy's, article, because he really did break it down, but his approach is so strange. These are the captions that he has. The power of Adderall. I tell you what, it goes the precision advantage that builds empires, military time, why your competition still uses training wheels, the cognitive rewiring that creates alpha mindsets, decision velocity under pressure. We're talking about pressure, and then having to translate discrete, continuous, and it just makes us all pause and wait. The neuroscience of temporal authority, precise time awareness, and to be aware of the time, you need embodied cognition, right? Like awareness, interoception, global synchronization for market domination. That's interesting. Elite implementation strategies. So he goes over strategies, adopting military time. The transition requires strategic implementation to maximize the competitive advantage. Start with your devices. Set your smartphone's computer and smartwatch to 24-hour format immediately. This creates constant reinforcement without requiring conscious effort. Your brain adapts faster when every time reference reinforces the new system. Next, implement it in all professional communications. Instead of scheduling meeting for 2 p.m. tomorrow, write 1,400 hours tomorrow. I imagine some of you are like in professions where it's like, it's not that serious. Like we're going over a pitch deck. You don't need to say, meet me at 1,400. Although that is really funny. And if you'd like to implement it, just, to help yourself reinforce, getting into 24-hour time, then that's great. That's funny. And the thing is also in Decisionscape, she talks about using humor. Like the last chapter is like using humor to like slowly ease into something. So like honestly, jokingly emailing people 1,400 tomorrow, let's meet. Yeah. The power of linguistic precision. How you communicate time reveals everything about your operational sophistication. So like he's literally approaching it from like day trader angle, and I'm like, we're just trying to read and love. But they love day trading, so like this is like their playground. Also, my like socks are like just so loose, and this is such a long episode. Now I'm getting self-conscious. Team integration and cultural transformation. The most powerful implementation occurs when your entire organization adopts military timing. So I am not going to ask you to ask your entire company or your family to adopt military time. What I am going to say is I'm going to include I'm going to include some links to some websites and apps where you can actually study with other people, because I know a lot of us need parallel play and to be kind of cued by someone else doing it. They're just apps and like websites you can use that are really cool, where you can like study with people across the globe. You do not have to speak to them. It could be just like joining a session and then having other people doing it, and then like setting your nice timer and just being encouraged by other people doing this. They don't know that they're abiding by the timer or 24-hour time. It's just something you can tell yourself, oh, we're all doing this at 1,500. They don't know who we are, right? So, gain a sense of making time, right? Understand your temporal preferences where you can make time, I'm going to give you a list of books to reframe your understanding of time. Know that when you observe yourself, it's going to get less wave, less flow. We're now getting into ego and the individual particle. Oh, now the particle's nervous. Oh my God. I don't know what to do. And then I have 2 books. So to understand time in a way outside of a business setting, The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. It's just physics, but it's very easy to digest physics, like how to conceptualize time in a way that's not like time on a clock. And then I have The Emotional Calendar, Understanding Seasonal Influences and Milestones to Become Happier, More Fulfilled, and in Control of Your Life. Seasonal, it goes beyond seasonal affective disorder, but it also is like talking about like wind, sunshine, and then like tides and, the difference. The thing is people always give people who love astrology so much shit, but like tides, the gravity is very real. And it's also, again, body is not excluded from the laws of physics. Gravity is very much affected during like how you have anti-gravity muscles. Like, of course, like the moon and the sun and the stars can affect how you feel. Like heat and pressure and gravity. I don't know like why. I mean, there's like whatever. So this is just physics, emotional physics of time, right? And then I have debunking. Okay. Now this gets more philosophical in the social aspects of time because we're trying to undo I've said time so many times. Okay, the hoarders, material deviance in modern American culture. So capitalism does have quite an influence on our perception of time. The thing is when it came to the Industrial Revolution and, like the assembly line and, hoarding and scarcity mindsets, being able to mass produce something did kind of, a lot more people were able to purchase things in mass. And I'm not this is not a book that is like diagnosing or like, condescending to hoarders in any way. It's like hoarder mentality. And the thing is it does compare like different socioeconomic statuses, right? Because like a lot of celebrities will hoard a shit ton of stuff, and then people who are lower income will hoard like like actual like wrappers or like bottles or something, and everyone considers that trash. And it's like, oh, but the thing is the rich people are hoarding shit too. They're not wearing that stuff. They're not using it. They just have collected it, right? And so hoarding and then applying this to like time, and when you create scarcity, right, you may feel compelled to hoard time, right? Like, oh, I don't want to give my time to any of those things, even if those things are people, right? The village, and maintaining relationships. Oh, I don't have enough time. Someone asked to hang out. I'm sorry, I can't afford to hang out right now. You start to be able to make time for yourself, and then, oh, now we're reinvesting in the community. Welcome back, the village, right? And then, I mean, we could go. The thing is like this all wraps around the same point, like taking back the means of production, time, and then redistributing it to the community, the village. Oh, I don't have time because I can't make time. You can make time. And then, oh my gosh, I'm making time for friends. So this is just, the physical act of hoarding, sorry. And then I also have Angela Davis, Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement. This is just an excellent, because we're talking about white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, and what it takes truly to be free. And you need to learn from the people who have put in the work time and time again, right? And it's just a great, oh my gosh. Sorry, I just really love this one. Because it's talking about previous liberation struggles as well. And I'm not saying that, not having enough time is like this, but it's just capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy runs so deep. And this is a really good book for reframing and understanding what it takes to get certain places and be free and allow yourself to move as you'd like. And then just another philosophical approach, The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. Now, this is more philosophical, but the thing is this is going to be people are scared of death, what happens after we die, because manufactured scarcity, right? Like a lot of Christianity is like baked into the fucking carpet of like everything that's going on. And so like, oh, the end times, people are prioritizing shit that happens after they die. And so if you want to go through this book after, reading Decisionscape, future tense, actually read future tense and then read The Denial of Death and then read how people speak about life and death, knowing what you just read with future tense, and see where people are describing the stress and anxiety in their body. And then once you relate to them, they will eventually discuss sort of clarifying discussions, and then you also get clarity yourself. Again, connecting concepts, reading future tense, which is about psychology, and then The Denial of Death, and that gets more philosophical, and then you can mix two things, and there you go. There's a fun little interdisciplinary lesson. And then the last thing is Attention Beyond Mindfulness by Gay Watson, knowing where to direct your attention and which things are distractions. Distractions are like the main propaganda model, learning shit that doesn't matter, getting distracted by shit that doesn't matter. I'm going to include all these books below. This was a long-ass episode. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope you had a good time. But I will talk to you guys next time. I hope you create your own course curriculum and you go through all the resources, go through all the episodes, and kind of break them apart by, health, interoception, creative pursuit, time management. Best of luck. I hope you love learning. I hope everything goes well for you. I hope you're nice to yourself because you deserve it. And I hope you fall in love with who you're becoming because it's about time. All right. Well, I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening. Rate me 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any place you get your podcasts.